What's up guys, Matty C here, and today we're going to learn how to tail whip. If you guys did not catch last week's episode we did on how to bar spin, feel free to pause the video right now, go and check that out and then come back to this. But for now, let's get into some tail whips. There's going to be 4 essential steps we're going to go over today, plus a couple of little key points just to give you that little bit of an edge. Step number 1, we need to figure out what your preferred way to do a tail whip is. Now, just like the bar spin, there's no wrong or right way to do this. It's just going to come down to personal preference, although I do suggest learning tail whips toe side instead of heel side, which will essentially be you flicking the tail whip the opposite way to what your toes are facing. The reason that I suggest this is because in the future it's going to be more beneficial for you to learn a whip toe side in comparison to what's called a heel whip. And we can go into that a little bit more in later videos, but just trust me here, I highly suggest that you guys try and do that. If not, and it is your natural way, it's not a huge deal, but you know, if you are just starting out, now is kind of a good time to kind of craft what way you want to do a tail whip. So once you have figured out your preferred way to do a tail whip is, now we're going to move on to learning the motion of the trick. So unlike a bar spin, a tail whip is actually going to involve both of your arms and your legs a little bit. Basically, your legs are going to be the part that are going to be bunny hopping and flicking the tail whip, whilst your arms are going to be doing the movement and help you complete that rotation. Now, as you increase the amount of whips you can do, your arm involvement is going to slowly overtake the amount of work you do with your legs, because your legs are really just going to help you off the ground and when you're landing, whereas your arms are going to be doing a majority of the work in the air. A great way to practice this motion is to be able to do it just standing on your feet and whipping your scooter around. Make sure that there's nothing in your way and nothing that your scooter is going to hit and break. When you're doing this, please make sure of that. But this is going to be a great way to get yourself familiar with the movement. Step number 2 is an obvious one, but is very important, and that is going to be your bunny hops, or the amount of height that you can get out of a ramp. To perform this trick, you're going to need to get a decent amount of height to actually be able to spin it and get it back around to your feet to be able to land it and roll away. I would suggest practicing your bunny hops until you feel comfortable enough with the height you're getting, and then you can focus on adding a tail whip in. Which leads me to step number 3, which is going to be actually trying the trick and applying the previous steps that you've learned. So I'm assuming now that you've got the bunny hop down pat, you've got the tail whip motion down pat, and which your preferred way is to do it, and now you can apply that all at once and actually attempt the tail whip out of a ramp or on flat ground, whatever you feel most comfortable with. I personally would suggest trying the trick on flat first, which means you're going to be able to do it in your own backyard, or front yard, or side yard if you have a side yard. One of the main questions I always get is how can I get both feet to a tail whip, in which I always tell people when you are trying it, keep both feet together and keep an eye on the deck coming around, because if one foot is able to get to it, your other one is going to get to it if they are together. I use that to this day. And the 4th and final step is going to be, you guessed it, practice makes perfect. Guys, like anyone else in the world, everybody starts somewhere. Even the best of the best pro riders couldn't do a tail whip at one point, so please bear that in mind when you're attempting this. Do not get discouraged if you don't land it your first try. Even if you don't land at your 20th try, if you guys keep practicing and practicing, I promise you eventually this trick will become second nature for you, and you're going to look back at when you were first trying it and you're going to laugh because you'll be able to do it every go and you'll have them dialed by that point. So I challenge you guys to go out there, learn this trick, and join us in our Root Industries weekly warm-ups and show us how many tail whips you can do in 15 seconds. Upload it to your feed or your story and make sure you tag us at Root Industries so we can see it and we can repost it on our page. Check out my attempt at the Root Industries weekly warm-ups. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you do smash a huge thumbs up, share it with your friends, and comment below what trick you guys want to see next. But for now, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.